8 meters. 7. 6.
Can't be, that's inside the room.
It's reading right, man, look.
Well, you're not reading it right.
5 meters, man. 4. What the hell? Oh my God. Oh, shit.
Give me the light.
Hello and welcome to the first video of 2024. So as you can see, sitting here on the table, on the bench, we've got 23 models from the Alien Tabletop survival game, 7 Colonial Marines, 16 rather nice looking Xenomorphs. You can see one's already been painted, so this guy here is almost kind of like my sort of proof of concept, how I wanted it to turn out. I don't know how well the camera's picking that up. Just the lighting slightly, see if that's any better. Really nicely sculpted, very straightforward to put together, and there's some good variations available based on what's on the sprues. Each model has got 2 separate heads. The arms and the tails are interchangeable, and you can put them in different poses depending on what you're after. So I'm going to split this into 2 videos. We'll concentrate on the Marines at a separate point, and right now we're just going to look at the Xenomorphs. So we'll get set up and we'll start talking you through the painting process. So we've got the basic colour and the cup of the airbrush ready to go. So the colour I've chosen as the base colour is this 1975 grimy black from Archive X. It says black, it's more of a grey, to be honest, you know, because anything that isn't black or anything lighter than black is grey technically. It's an interesting colour because it's almost got a greeny hue off it, depending on what light you look at it in. And to me, if you're painting, you know, something organic like this that's meant to look quite black, then it's not going to be absolute black. It just seemed like an ideal colour. I've got a build up of green going on top of that afterwards, as you'll see in the steps coming ahead. The colour I chose to add on to that was Citadel's Bile-Tan Green. It's just a thin inky wash, and it settles into the recesses nicely and actually just starts to enhance the colour a bit more. But then we reapply other colours on top of that to just knock that back a wee bit. So really, you hardly even see the green on this, to be entirely honest, by the time you get to this point. But that's not what I was after. I was after, just as you look at it, you just see hints of green here and there. Depending on what angle you can just catch, depending on how the light catches it, you can just catch glimpses of the green, which, to be honest, it's hard to pick up the camera, I think. But when you see it, when you're playing it on a top of a table, when you're playing it on top of a table and on the actual game, and you're just looking at the models themselves, you can pick up these hints of green. And these are the models for photograph purposes, or, you know, they're not used for filming or anything like this. It's a tabletop game, it's a very visual thing. So for me, the goal here is to achieve a paint job that to the naked eye looks quite good. A nice organic feel. Like, there's some metallics in there as well. I used a couple of the Vallejo metallics, particularly this metallic black, which again, it's not actually a black, it's a more of a really dark gunmetal. It's darker than the gunmetal colour that Citadel do, which was kind of one of the main reasons I was attracted to it for this particular project. I also brought in a wee bit of this shade here. They call this one steel, which is a very bright, almost kind of polished steel colour, and using that for picking out some of the highlights on the sort of, I don't know if you call it hosing or the kind of ribbed areas, just to highlight some of the parts of the model, just so you can pick up that metallic sheen again. And of course the teeth and some of the films, when you look at the Xenomorphs, they've definitely got sort of chromy silver looking teeth. Other colours used black wash, just use Vallejo's wash for that. Bags of that stuff is great. And that was just going into some of the deeper recesses, so that we're seeing shadow as well as highlights, like in the rib cage and, you know, the vertebrae, that kind of stuff. What else have we got in there? Yeah, so we used a bit of highlighting as well. So I picked this colour, which seems a bit of an odd choice, but actually works really well when I was doing my paint trials. So this is, again, Vallejo's Pale Blue. I like these paints because they're pre-mixed, they're ready to go for the airbrush. I know you can sort of pre-mix your own or whatever, but when I was first starting out my airbrush, I bought a load of these just to get me going. Primarily because I didn't want to spend too much time learning how to mix paint. I just wanted to get practicing with the brush and thought I'd pick up the mixing as we go, which I have, and it's fine. It's served me well for the Archive X stuff and whatever. But anyway, so this pale blue, it's almost a grey blue. I looked at using Archive X's light blue, and you'll see that here, light blue 55, but it's just too powdery baby blue for my liking. I also looked at the ILM Stormy Sea, which is a bit more of the grey colour, but I was looking for something a few shades lighter, which is where this one came in. It just seemed to trump it because it had that greyish look to it that I was after, but was still blue, and it's just really subtle. I mixed it in with a bit of some glazed medium just to thin it out a bit, and let it blend in a wee bit better, and used that just to highlight on like the dome of the head here, some of the raised areas and the back of the head, ribs, muscles, you know, the sort of the tendons, etc., and the legs and the arms and stuff, just to pick out the contours, and have some nice variation in the model and simulating light bouncing off these parts. So that's pretty much the general paint job. The only other thing that went on top, it didn't seem to translate that well once I had put the lacquer on, which I've had experience with this before, is the Vallejo pigment. So I'm probably going to reapply that onto the model again. And again, that's just to give a very, very light metallic sheen off the overall model. Again, if you look at some of the footage in the films, there is a bit of a almost metallic look off them at points. Again, it's just subtleties is what I'm looking for. I'm not looking for you know, something that looks great on film or photograph. It's a tabletop game. It's for playing. So that's what we're looking for there. And again, so this is dark steel. So this is actually a metallic powder. Really, really nice. Again, very, very deep gunmetal colour. You'll see it when it gets used, hopefully. The other paints I've got sitting out here are rust. Again, that was just for adding detail onto the base. Just some patches of rust and stuff like that. I used some other weathering paints that I've got there, like oil stains and stuff like that. Also, round the rim, we've done the wasp stripe hazard warning. There's a lot of that in Alien and other films, that, you know, the kind of sci-fi things. I've got these health and safety. Everybody's business, isn't it? These health and safety. Shut up, John. These hazard strips everywhere. So I figured that would look pretty good on the base and just keep it in with the sci-fi feel of the movie. You've got a nice grate base, you know, like a kind of metallic walkway. That was just painted black, and then just a couple of layers of some metallics and some black wash, a couple of weathering paints in there just to just to give it a kind of dirty, rusty, oily feel. Other thing I've done here is a couple of the models, 3 of them in particular, I have added some light damage to. So what we've got here is it's been shot. We've got a bit of a blast mark, and we've now got melted steel floor, because as most of these will remember for the films, the blood in these things is acid, so there's a haircut on that there. I'll get that after. So basically it melts through the steel of the floor, whatever. So I wanted to bring that to the model as well. So there's 3 of them with various different wounds on them, just to simulate that. And what I've got here is this colour. It's moss and lichen weathering paint. It's a really matte, chalky almost paint that just, when I was watching I was rewatched the films just for reference and get my it's been a couple of years since I've seen it, so get my feel for the movie back and give me some ideas and some inspiration for the painting. And I noticed when the blood that comes out of the Xenomorphs, it's this kind of colour. I thought, oh, that's interesting. So that might be handy. So what I've done is I've used that, and it was on a paint test actually, and I've mixed it in with a bit of this gloss varnish, just to give it a slight sheen, to make it look a bit more blood-like, make it simulate a liquid, and so we'll have a wee couple of streaks of blood dripping out of the Xenomorphs as well. And that is that. So I've got my airbrush loaded up, and we'll just crack on with some painting. And as if by magic, we're back, all painted. Just run over two thin coats, just to quote Duncan Rhodes again. Loaded up the airbrush. It's with that amount of models, I've got the airbrush there. It's more convenient for time for me, so loaded up the airbrush and just gave them all a blast. So it went over in 2 coats, just to anyway, just to get it all done and dusted, and that's the main colour down. The next part we're going to do is the green wash. It's the next stage in this process for me. So I'm just going to get some into this wee ducat here, because I always end up spilling these. I didn't when I done that first one, I didn't go absolutely mental and just, like, you know, completely drench the thing, but I gave it a good coat, because I want it to, I mean, it's a dark green against a dark grey black colour. It's going to be hard to see once it's dry. I mean, you can probably pick it out just now. Once it starts to settle into the recesses and starting to dry, it really fades and you don't see it quite as much. And then, of course, when you start building other layers on top of it, then you really start to lose its intensity, which is what you're looking for anyway, because as I said to you before, this is just a suggestion, a subtle hint, just a colour that's in the background in there. We want to see it, but we don't want it to be, you know, overtaken. You know, it's about building up layers. You know, when you look at different things, you know, in the world round about you, you know, skin's probably a prime example. Actually, it's built up in layers. There's different colours, so you know, you've maybe got veins or something underneath the skin, so there might be sort of shades of blue in there, and there's pinks and reds, and you know, you can more your traditional skin tones, and you know, it just depends on the effect that you're going for. And that's the same with everything else, you know, organic or not. There could be dust on things, light, shade, depending if you're simulating that in the model. Anyway, so I'm not going to just bore everybody to death with me, you know, applying a wash on 16 Xenomorphs. I probably won't even do a time lapse of this actually, because it's not that exciting. You've seen a short time lapse here of just laying the base colour down. You get the gist. you get the gist. And so I'll just talk you through each of the stages of these absolutely smashing wee models. Really nice wee sculpts, as I said to you before, easy to put together. They're made out of styrene, so they go together quite nicely with your sort of standard styrene glues, your Tamiya cements, etc. So the model on the right will look like this model on the left when it's finished, believe it or not. The green will just be a subtlety. We're now going to go in with the grimy black colour that we originally put down, and we'll start picking out some of the detail, or some of the highlights, some of the raised areas. So this muscular area on the shoulder here, sort of the forearms, some of the raised parts of the legs, you've got the calves and stuff in here, a few parts on the head as well, so you get the dome part here, some of the more raised areas. Excuse me. So I want to leave that green in some of the deeper areas, and that then leaves just this really subtle colour. It's hard to see on this model, to be honest, on the camera, but you can pick it up with the naked eye, as I think I've said earlier. So you do see some flashes of that green, and that's all I was looking for. It's just a suggestion, it's just an undertone. So the next part of the job is going to be to reclaim back some of that grey black colour, and then once we've done that, we're going to highlight with the pale blue, and that's from Vallejo pale blue, and you'll see just shortly what I mean by that. Again, just going over some of the areas where the grimy black will be, and we're just going to layer in just on the highest points. The hosing, the pipe work that you can see, that'll all get picked out. As you can see, it has been done in this model with this colour here. So it does say black, but it's a metallic. It's basically just a really dark gunmetal. It's a really nice colour for basing metals. And once that's done, we'll get the black wash into that, into some of the recessed areas, and then we'll show you where we're going next. Stay tuned. Okay, so we're back after painting all the Xenomorphs, the next stage of the process. Reclaim back some of the colour from that green tone, although we're still managing to keep some of it in there, and then done a wee bit of highlighting. I think I got a wee bit overzealous with this one, but we can claw that back. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take this metallic black. It's really just, it's a kind of gunmetal colour from Vallejo. I really quite like it because it's a bit darker than the usual stuff I would use from Citadel. And we're going to start picking out the areas where there's that sort of tubing. Just a little bit like that in the brush. I'm not going to sit and do all of this. This is just a quick demonstration, primarily because it's still absolutely freezing here in Scotland. It's been a couple of days since I've actually filmed the last part, just primarily because it's been cold, but I've been in the house painting because it has just been too cold out here. Right, so that's dried off, finished those last couple of wee bits. So the next part we're going to do is the wash. Now, as I think I said to you before, we're going to use Vallejo's black for this one. I've started buying a lot of the Vallejo washes actually, because they're a lot better value for money than the Games Workshop Citadel ones, and the quality's just the same. Blacks and browns and stuff like that. How many mils is that? Doesn't even say, does it? 35mm. By comparison, you're getting, I don't know what these wee pots tell you, it. $24. So they're probably the same price, roughly, give or take. And you're getting a bit more in them. And the good thing about these is it's got the wee droppers on the top, as you can see. Just get that everywhere. So that makes life a bit easier when you're, although when you get it over your thumb it doesn't have enough. It makes life a bit easier when you're actually trying to no spill it, and you can get it out the bottle a bit easier rather than through the pots that the Games Workshop stuff comes in. Anyway, talking rubbish again. There we go. So, where are we looking to put this? Let's see. So I just need to adjust the lighting a bit here. Right. So, some of the areas that we're looking to use is like these recessed parts in here. Use this wash into some of these recessed areas. Again, I'm not going to go through this entire model bit by bit. We, excuse me, we just want to start building that up. So we want to be quite precise, much more precise than we were before. Under the head, we're going to have a lot of shadows in this area and stuff, so we want to be starting getting that wash in there to start darkening down those areas. Round about the mouth, we've been in there with the right under here. There we go. We've been right in at the mouthpiece there with the metallic, because as you probably have seen the film, I'm sure they've got sort of metallic looking sort of teeth, certainly in some of the movies. So we're kind of replicating that as well. There'll be a lighter colour applied to sorry, that's out of focus again. What is it? There'll be a lighter colour applied to the mouth area and stuff, just to start, you know, to highlight that and pick some parts out. But you get the idea. The rib cage as well, that's another area that we want to be focusing on. So, sorry, normally I'd lean on the desk here, but so let's start just getting that wash just into those wee nooks and crannies, and we'll use the capillary action to just start filling out those channels. Getting all fancy and technical here. Let's get some under the neck there, so you can see that. Well, I don't know how well we can see on there, just that light a wee bit. You can't, the naked eye, you can still pick up some of that green, but there are areas starting to darken off. There are areas that are highlighted, so we're now starting to get more of the colour that I'm after, but that green just flashes through here, there and everywhere. It was only ever going to be a subtlety. Again, these are miniatures for tabletop warfare, so they need to look good to the eye. That's my whole sort of brief to myself on this one. The tail, that's obviously primarily green. We'll be starting to go through that again. Just I'm off camera there, sorry. Give me a second. Just move that. Right, so we're just going to start dropping into the vertebrae, and again trying to get the gaps rather than just a blanket. Spread across, and that'll help maintain some of that green look, but darken it down and get us more in touch with the tones, the final tones that we're after. Anyway, right, I'm going to pack this in and I'll crack on without the camera. There's a wee bit in there though, because it's too distracting, and you get the idea. Nobody, as I said to you before, nobody wants to sit and watch me paint a miniature, you know, stroke by stroke. This is just about demonstrating some stuff and showing people what I've done and how I've achieved the look that I've got. If that's what they want to try and replicate, or, you know, get a few ideas from. Anyway, remember, any comments or opinions or anything you want to share, drop it in the comments and we can have a chat about it. Right, I'll crack on with this and I'll see you in the closing stages. Right, that black wash is now starting to dry in, so you can see the effect that it's already starting to have. The one on the left is the one we've just painted. By comparison, the one on the right is obviously the completed one. That's the look we're going for. So you can see things are starting to now fall together. There's not much left to do on this particular model, apart from a few wee finishing touches to the tail with the black wash maybe. There's a couple of wee areas I think I've missed. Apart from that, it'll just be the pigment, the dark steel metallic pigment powder that will be applied. Hopefully a bit more sparingly than I did with the one on the right. Excuse me. I don't know if I went too daft. I'm not sure. I think it might be a wee bit too much, but listen, it is what it is. I'm still very happy with how it's turned out, and then of course we'll move on to the base. That will just be the concluding part of the video. So we'll get these all finished off, we'll get the powders and stuff applied, we'll get them sealed as well, because it's important to seal them, particularly with the powder. The powders don't attach themselves or bond very well, so they usually need something to adhere them to the paintwork. Sometimes if you mix these powders with maybe a wee bit of isopropyl alcohol or something, that can help them to bond, or even just a bit of airbrush thinner can work a trick as well. And also make sure you seal them, because you don't want it coming off in your fingers. Not only does it make your fingers dirty, but it ruins your model as well, it ruins the final look. So we'll get them all sealed up, and then we'll get a crack on with the base. See you in a bit. Right, so we're back at it at the bench again. Weather's picked up a wee bit. I say picked up, it's typical of Scottish weather, 8 degrees and absolutely bucketing of rain, but hey ho. So where we're at with this guy here is, we've done all the highlighting, we have applied the black wash, and then also, I just don't know how well it's showing up in the camera, out of focus there, there we go. We have also applied the gunmetal weathering powder as well, so he's got a nice metallic sheen. Looks a lot shinier on the camera because of the harsh lighting, than what it does actually in reality. There's a slightly more dullish look to him, although there is still a bit of reflection for the metallic paint, or sorry, the metallic pigment. That will dull down slightly once we apply the final matte coat of sort of varnish. So what we're going to focus on here now is that the actual Xenomorph himself is pretty much completed, apart from maybe one or two minor details that I need to pick up here and there. His teeth need a wee slight highlight. I think that's pretty much it really. We're going to start working on the base, and for that, sorry, I'll just get some paint on my brush here. We're going to dry brush. Now I'm actually using an airbrush paint here. This is quite a thin paint, but it's that dark gunmetal colour that I really like. So the base, it's not ideal, but you know, there are better paints for dry brushing, but you know, they'll still do the same job. So the base has been painted black, the walkway, the metal grille, and what we're going to do is just start building up with the gunmetal colour on the surface, on the sort of top details, the surface details. You'll see obviously that there's indentations or holes and gaps and stuff, so we want them to stay black, and we want the more raised areas to appear metallic. Now most of you probably have done a bit of dry brushing. For those who don't know what it is, effectively dry brushing is getting paint onto your brush, getting the pigment on there, and then actually wiping most of it off, so your brush appears dry, hence the name, but there are still traces of the pigment on there, and then as you run the brush across, it starts to leave paint on the raised areas, and effectively you can build up colours and highlights and effects using the dry brush technique. very underrated technique. So this base here, you'll notice I've kind of went at it with a hot soldering iron. So we've kind of simulated a small wound. I don't know how well you can see that there on the side of the Xenomorph, and as anybody who's seen the movie will remember, they've got a sort of acidic or caustic sort of type blood that melts through just about everything. So we've replicated an effect like that here. I discussed that with my client, the person who's commissioned these models to be painted, and he thought it was an absolutely fantastic idea, because it allows him to simulate during gameplay, you know, if a Xenomorph is taking a hit. So he thought it was a smashing idea, so we went ahead with that. We've done that. I have to say, I'm quite pleased how it looks. We'll cover the blood and how we make the blood up just shortly, but I really just want to show you what the technique is for this. Now, I'm not going to go over this entire, you know, video of me just dry brushing models. So what we'll do is we'll cut this off here. In fact, actually no, we won't. We'll show you the next part because that can get done pretty much right now. So what we've done is we've just highlighted. I don't know how well we can see that in the camera. Just change lightness slightly. That looks a wee bit better. So we're starting to now see the details. Now I wanted the dark metallic to start with, and then what we'll do is we'll move over to a lighter silver. Again, probably just use this one because I've got it sitting at the desk. Although I do have a silver paint. I can't be bothered looking for it just now. It's in one of the, sorry, bumped the camera. It's in one of my drawers, and it's actually a dry brush paint. It's a Citadel that makes it. Just change this brush over. These are just old sort of cheap brushes. You get on packets of them off Amazon for a couple of quid. Don't use your good brushes for this because it absolutely destroys them. As you can see already with this one, it's starting to splay and bend and twist. I'm fine with that, that's okay. As I say, they're quite cheap brushes, you get them 10 a penny. Just any old brush or any cheap brush is perfect for this technique. Otherwise you're going to ruin your good sable hair brush. And you're not going to be very pleased with me. So back to the piece. So what we're also going to do, let me just give this a wee shake first. What we're going to do is we're going to use a lighter silver just to create a highlight. Sorry, 2 seconds. Can't shake paint and talk at the same time. It just must be a man thing. Anyway, blocked a wee bit there. There we go, there's some paint. Right, so it's going to create a highlight and just give a bit more depth to the base. And now I want to also add some additional weathering, which we'll cover in a wee second. I'll stop the video and you'll see that in the next section, or the next segment. I want to add a bit of weathering because, you know, if you remember the film, the place had been lying empty for a while, a few months or whatever it is, so there's not going to be much happening, there's not going to be much traffic. There's been areas that have been broken and stuff, so there'll be rain and dampness and stuff getting in, so you would expect in a kind of futuristic industrial sort of type environment like that, things will start to look dirty and rusty and whatever, so we'll add a wee bit of that. So what we're just doing here is just adding a few wee areas just to lighten that up. Because we don't want it to be too dull, but it will knock back slightly when we burn the camera again. It will be knocked back slightly once we do the weathering and whatnot. There we go. Just, you don't need to go daft with that. It just starts to shine it up a wee bit. There we go. How's that? That looks okay. We've got that sort of dirty, greasy, oily look, and yeah, I'm quite happy with that. Now, what we're also going to do Again, if you wanted to darken that, you could actually go back over that again with a black wash. I'm not going to, not with this one, I'm not going to do it with this one, but I maybe do it with some others. What we're also going to do is just use some weathering paints. Now, hang on a wee second. There we go. A couple of different paints that I use. Some of the examples of the paints that I use. Wee second. Shake these. Archive X Rust. This is a great rust colour, hence the name. It's just the perfect colour for actually creating rust patches. Although what we need to remember is that rust isn't just the one colour. There's various different versions of rust. Another good rust paint, actually, we might even use some of it here. Where is it? This is another paint by Citadel. So I keep buying up. This is called Typhus Corrosion. Leaves oily streaky marks, and is also textured as well, which is ideal. And then we've also got this one here from Vallejo, which is oil stains. Kind of says it all in the tin. So what we'll do is we can just add some streaks in here and there. This is almost like a dry brush effect as well. I've took most of the paint off, so you can see that. I don't know how well we can see that actually. Maybe we touch more on the brush. Take a bit of that off, right? And so we're just going to dab it on. Turn the brush, because if you don't, you end up making a pattern, almost like a print, that matches the way the brushes are lying, and you end up just getting this repeating pattern. So you want it to look random, a bit like when you're sponging. So there we go. We'll just build up some of that colour there. So there we go. There's just a wee patch of rust there. Not too intense. A wee bit behind it there. Yep, that's plenty. We don't want to go mad with that. And then what we'll do is we'll use just a wee bit of this Typhus Corrosion round about as well, and it'll just break up a wee bit. There's some varying colours. Actually, we need this on here. So as I said, this is a textured paint. And you can actually make some great effects with this as well. You can make it look like oil, greasy marks. Right, we're back just to do the Xenomorph blood. To do the Xenomorph blood, I've mixed up 50-50 even mix of this Vallejo gloss varnish and this Vallejo acrylic environment texture weathering effect paint. So this is actually for moss and lichen on model railways, dioramas, that kind of stuff. But actually, if you look at the colour, it probably looks slightly more green in the light here, but it's that kind of sort of mustardy yellow colour. If you look at the colour of the Xenomorph blood in the movie, it's that kind of colour. The purpose of the gloss varnish, that's a matte paint, as you've probably seen in the bottle there. I don't know if it says it or not, does it? No, I don't think it does. Anyway, it's a matte paint, gives a matte effect. So we don't want it to be too flat, we want a wee sheen off it, and that's what the gloss varnish will do. So sorry, I keep bumping that there in my big hands. So we don't want to go too daft here, we just want to be doing some streaks as if it's bleeding. Let's get some of that in there. As if it's run down its leg. So just get some of that paint off of there. Yep. So it's took an injury and it's bleeding. Now that's going to dry in, and if we need to, we'll just build that back up. So I'll come back in a second, we'll hit it with the hairdryer, and we'll come back in a second and see how it turns out. Right, final effect, done. So all I done was add just another wee, lighten a wee bit, add another wee layer or two of that paint on there, just to achieve that look, and voila. Also put a wee tiny bit there just to, a wee tiny bit there just to represent the acid starting to burn into the metal. You'll see that what we've done is we highlighted this part, get my thumb out the road, we highlighted the sort of ridges, but we left the centre of it dark as if it melted down through through the layers. If you've seen the movies, it melts down through deck after deck, so that just sort of gives that depth to it. So there we go. Yeah, quite pleased with that. Standing on the tabletop looks pretty impressive, I think, anyway. Other people might have a different opinion. If you do, comment below. Excellent. Right, so the final part of the video is just coming up in a second, and it'll be how we tackle the rim. Right, things are progressing along. We have marked a few areas with some gunmetal paint, and now what we're doing is, you've probably seen in some of my other videos using this technique before. So this is masking fluid. So this is the stuff I use from Winsor Newton, although you can also use the Vallejo, so any brand of latex is fine. And what we do is we just apply a few dots here and there on the metallic areas, because when the paint dries, the layer on top lifts off, revealing what's underneath, and we've got a chipping technique. We'll let that dry, and while I'm doing that, I shall apply a wee bit of masking tape to the model so we don't get overspray, and then we'll do the next stage. Right, now we're all taped up, we then start with the yellow for the wasp stripe hazard sort of effect. Now this is just bog standard, Vallejo, medium yellow, nothing flash and fancy. Good old faithful paints, the old Vallejos. So the masking liquid mask is dried. So what we want to start doing is just building up the yellow. Now it's quite thin actually, it's quite a thin mix. Sorry, I keep bumping this, it's because the camera's so close. So yellow is one of those colours that isn't, it doesn't matter how good a quality the paint is, it isn't particularly strongly pigmented, and so it requires a lot of build up, and so you just have to be really patient. And we just go between adding layers, drying it off, adding layers, drying it off, and slowly building it up. There's some dark colours underneath there, it's quite uneven in terms of the various tones. You get the silver, you get the grey primer, etc. Probably some splashes of black wash and stuff when we were painting the actual Xenomorph. So you just have to take your time and slowly build that up. So what we'll do is we'll just skip all the dramas, and I'll get this layered up, and then we can move on to the next stage of the stripe, and I'll show you what to do next. Right, back at it. Last stage. We just apply some for this size, this scale of model, I've used 3mm tape. So this is just Tamiya's masking tape. This is the flexible one. I don't have the standard masking tape in 3mm at the minute, so I'll just use the flexible stuff. It does the same job. So it's quite a tricky one. You need to cut it into these sections, tack it down at a roughly 45-degree angle, again roughly spaced apart. It's not exactly perfect, but it's not going to actually really be noticed that much at this scale. You just need to make sure it's down tight so that there's no any overspray. What I did before I applied this was I also applied another wee few spots of the colour, the masking fluid. You'll also notice that, I don't know how well the light shows this actually, maybe a bit better, the colour isn't exactly uniform. There's some darker shades showing through at various points. I deliberately misted it that way with the airbrush so that there was some darker spaces. It's actually, believe it or not, saves you in your weathering at a later stage. It means that your yellow isn't very clean and crisp looking. Normally if you were doing a yellow, you would probably want to look, you know, if you wanted it really bright, you'd be looking at pre-painting it white underneath beforehand, or something really light, just to help that yellow shine through, because as I said previously, yellow's not particularly strongly pigmented in any form of paint. It's just a natural what's the word I'm looking for? I don't know. It's just how yellow pigments are in paint. They don't they're not very opaque. That's the word I'm looking for. They don't really have a great deal of opacity. It's just a bit dodgy there. So I've just tacked that down, and then what we're going to do is use the airbrush to lightly apply. This is just standard Vallejo black, and we're just going to start applying a few layers, just lightly. The black obviously covers it very quickly. I'll just give that a quick blast, 2 seconds. Excuse the noise. It just helps that dry a bit quicker, and just as lightly blasting that. And there's a bit fell off, never mind. I can live without that. I can do something with that in a minute. And there we go. Now, if you've got some yellow shining through, just another quick mist before we go, and that's us. So the next thing we'll do, let that dry a wee second, and then we'll get the tape off it. Right, that's us get the tape off, and we'll start to scrape away the paint. So I'd accidentally knocked a bit of the tape off and sprayed black over it. It would have been a nightmare to repaint yellow, so I just left it, and actually it's been right where a blob of the liquid latex has been, so it's actually worked out perfect. We're just starting to scrape that away. Now, you'll see that it's creating that chipping effect that I spoke about earlier. Sorry. Now, the paint job here, it's a dystopian future, so it's not meant to look clean, tidy and perfect. I mean, this isn't Star Trek. Christ, could you imagine one of these things running about Star Trek? My God. Be carnage. Anyway, the yellow, you'll notice, I can't remember if I'd said this or not, but yeah, I did actually, I think I said that. We spray it very lightly to leave a really dirty look, and actually really helps with the weathering. I'm really pleased with how that's turned out, actually. Now, we've got the black yellow stripes. It's quite dirty, it's quite messy, there's a lot of chipping going on in there. What we can go back in with is a wee bit of black with our airbrush. We just lightly mist here and there, just very subtly, and it starts to just dirty that up even more. Yep, and then take the brightness off those silver areas a wee bit. Still looks dirty, worn, all the things that we're looking for. And then, just to finalise things, we can use a wee bit of the rust colour. Need a thin brush for this. Where is it? There, it's there. You can just go in with a wee thin brush, a wee bit of the rust coloured paint, or any rust coloured paint that you've got or you're using, and we can just do a couple of wee manual streaks, just using the brush, just to simulate that rust and dirt. Rust is a great technique to use as a streak, because if you think about water, it flows down the way and then you leave all these wee streaks of rust, and that really gives a good, rather than just doing it in patches. And you can do it in patches as well, but for me it's one of those techniques that just looks the part. Get it on some of those metallic areas as well. We could even use a wee bit of the corrosive, or the typhus corrosion from Citadel, just to add in a few wee areas there and here and there as well, especially on those metallic bits. You know, right? Yep. Just build that up there a wee bit. Voila! Another base completed. Safe to say that model's done. I'm quite pleased with how it's turned out. As I said earlier, let me know in the comments. This will be it for this video. You'll be glad to know. Thanks very much for sticking along. I know it's a particularly long one, but there was a lot to cover. So thanks if you've stuck to the end of it. Thanks very much for watching. And as I say, stick a wee comment below, and maybe a wee like or two on the channel. And a wee subscribe would be great. Thanks very much for watching this. I'll crack on with the last couple of Xenomorphs that are left to be done, and maybe stick a wee picture up on Instagram once they're all finished in a wee row. Any questions again about what I've discussed in here, or looking for a bit more insight, or you have any other advice for me, fire in the comments below. Thanks for watching. Catch you later. Cheers.